So yes, welcome everyone. I'm going to be talking a bit about community engagement for vegetation management today. Now, I'll talk a bit about NHRA and the relationship with Safer Together and how things work before handing over to Chloe just to go through the real meat of what we want to discuss today, which is the project, where this project has come from, what it is that we're looking to achieve, a bit more about Safer Together and how it fits that program. And then I'll do a quick bit on governance reporting and the EOI process, but I'm not going to spend too long on those elements just because I feel like it's already there in the EOI. Given that we're a nice contained group, I think it would be good just to make as much time as possible for Q&A. Chloe, I was wondering, would you be happy to say a quick hello and introduce a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I think I know most people on the call, but my name's Chloe Begg and I'm a senior research scientist in the R&D team at CFA. And I'm one of the project leaders on this project from the Safer Together program.
And my name's George Goddard. I'm a node research manager, but I'm CFA and DECA. And both are involved through Safer Together on this project. So, but my background is I joined this role about 2 months ago, sort of taking over from Loriana, who some of you would know. My background is actually more in overseas international development, community development practice. So I work with international NGOs or international development NGOs. But yes, community engagement and participatory development is definitely my background. So that's why I find these projects super interesting because it speaks to a lot I used to work on. I used to do a lot of work through that role and others with different Aboriginal ranger groups as well. And just seeing the strength of that engagement and leadership and achieving really good resilience outcomes. And so that's a bit about me. So you know you're chatting to rather than going this weird. I'm representing Natural Hazards Research Australia. I forgot to say, sorry, we've got my colleague Varna online as well, who some of you will certainly know, I'm sure. So she'll be, if you're having any technical issues, please just put it in the chat and Varna's kindly offered to help out with that. So, but yeah, we're both from NHRA. We started off on 1st of July 2021, but an ongoing continuation of the CRC, the Bushfire and Natural Hazard CRC, who some of you would have been very familiar with. Slightly different structure now, but we're funded over 10 years with $85 million of funding to distribute based on research priorities that have been identified by end users. So really having that end user focus, which speaks a lot actually to my background, which is community-focused research and trying to identify research priorities with communities I was working with in Timor and Vanuatu and Cambodia and on country here. So certainly I really appreciate that focus on making sure that what we do is really used and usable. The core objectives that we have in essence are to improve, do research to improve community resilience and really have that on the ground impact. Hence the focus on utilisation. And identifying that resilience has a number of different dimensions to it throughout the different phases of the disaster response cycle and recovery, so preparedness. So we really do have research that spans a whole gamut. Via Country Fire Authority, who we have a header agreement with, and there's a project control board that helps manage some of these projects and provides strategic oversight and governance. But really it will be working very closely with the broader Safer Together community in this case. And I'll be the project manager on it, as providing project oversight and Chloe's the Safer Together research lead for this one. So but this is being commissioned directly by that group. So just to give you a bit of background, it's a little different to some of the other projects we run where it would be the Syntec fund. And Chloe, I might hand over to you, if that's okay, to explain a bit more about Safer Together for those that might be less familiar with the initiative.
I guess I wanted to, most of the information about the project and what we're looking for is in the EOI, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but I did want to, there are a couple of points that I really wanted to make in this presentation. And I guess starting with a bit of a background on Safer Together. So this is a program that has been, it's funded by the Victorian government and it's been running since 2015. And it's really, the whole purpose of the program is to bring together agencies across Victoria that work in the bushfire mitigation, prevention, preparedness space to work together. So to, decrease redundancies and inefficiencies, and make sure that we are where we are working with communities and working in this space where we're working together effectively. So the program's led by CFA and DECA, and we work in partnership with other agencies such as parks and local government. And we also work together with community groups, and the whole idea, I've put this neat little, I guess, diagram image on the side, but we have these two sort of main pillars, which is that we work together, not just across agencies, but that we're working with communities, and it's across land tenure. So we're working on both private and public land, which is important. And we're also really passionate about making the work that we do evidence-based, for the idea that better knowledge equals better decisions, and that we want to measure our success and communicate that. So that's a bit of a background on the Safer Together program. And my role in the program as the senior research scientist is in that knowledge space, identifying opportunities where we can use research to create a stronger evidence base to inform and support our decisions. A bit of background in the project. So in this working together space across the agencies, one of the things that we're looking to improve is our community engagement around vegetation management. And this has been, it's the interest in this and the, I guess, impetus from government more broadly has come about as a response or as a recommendation by the Inspector General for Emergency Management in their review of the 2019 and 2020 bushfire season, where they recommended that DECA and by extension Safer Together lead a community engagement process to improve the community's understanding of these 3 points, being the process of fuel management and the concept of residual risk, the conditions under which fuel management effectiveness is limited, and how fuel management is planned, conducted, evaluated, and reported on. And DECA has responded to the recommendations and committed to a number of actions. And those actions include developing an engagement process that builds community understanding of our fuel management program, as well as developing a shared guidance for how we do engage with communities around this. And what this research is seeking to do, and this is already underway, but what this research seeks to do is create that evidence base. So making sure that as we move in this space in the future, we have a really good basis and a structure to how we're working together that can lead to that continuous improvement process. So the project, I guess to summarize what I just said, the project is really aiming to understand, both have a structured understanding of the agency context in terms of what we currently do across the different agencies, across the different regions in this space, as well as we also are interested in what community thinks about how agencies are currently engaging with them and how they would like to be engaged with in terms of this particular topic of vegetation management. So it's really about that, I guess, documenting in a really strategic and structured way, what is it that we do, what are our shared objectives, so that we can really move forward in a really structured way. So we have funding. The project is developed quite a big blue sky approach to this. So we're looking forward into the future. We've got funding for the first 2 phases. So the first 2 phases are really that baseline evidence base, I guess, that will help us then move forward to that improvement. So we're looking, phase 1 is about the scoping, what we're doing in this space across the agencies and what are our objectives? Are they similar? Can we come up with shared objectives about what we want to do when we're engaging with communities in this space? So there are lots of opportunities across the planning cycle for vegetation management and the build of the joint fuel management plans. So before areas have been selected for vegetation management activities, before the activity takes place, during and after, what are we trying to achieve? Well, how could we use community engagement more effectively? And then phase 2 is then sort of taking these assumptions and these ideas and all these objectives that we have, and then testing them with communities and seeing if they resonate. And that we're hoping will create that really strong base from which we can then move to phase 3, 4, 5, and 6. So phase 3 is about we'll hopefully have a good idea overview of what we are currently doing from phase 1, and then we'll be able to look at results of phase 2 and see, well, what are we doing? Where are we working quite well, and where are the gaps? And then phase 4 is looking at, well, if we see gaps, can we actually achieve any of these improvements that we're seeking to achieve? And then phase 5, in spirit of a continuous improvement, we're hoping from phase 1 and phase 2 we have a really good structure and really strong objectives that we will then be able to start developing up that monitoring and evaluation culture and framework that we then are able to have that continuous improvement going forward. So that's the idea, that's where we're heading. And this is really important for us. So in working with external research providers, making sure that the outputs of the project, that we're working together to make sure that we're achieving really practical outputs that we can use. So we're taking your expertise and your knowledge and your creativity, and we're hopefully coming to a place where we will have something that agencies feel have buy-in and will be able to use to inform and support their processes into the future. So we're hoping to have a report that clearly documents and lists some shared objectives for community engagement for the sector. It would also be great to have that sort of a library of existing practices structured across the different agencies, across the different regions, so we have a really clear view of what is the state of play, what are we currently doing. And then also having that idea, that understanding of what we are currently doing and how communities would like to be engaged in the future, so we can sort of map, okay, well, how are we actually performing and where are the potential gaps or opportunities to improve, and then of course a presentation of all the findings. And the benefits of this is that you might be wondering, well, don't you know what you do? And there is a certain level of that. We have a certain level of oversight, but what's really missing is that structured approach across the agencies. So we're really hoping that we have more clarity in terms of what is actually happening, what those different teams, the different regions, there's lots of people working in this space, what are they doing, and what are their hopes, dreams and objectives. And then also we have assumptions about what community members would like, but having real data that helps us to untangle, okay, well, who can we be working with, what are the opportunities, what are the needs, that will be really helpful as well. So we'll have that increased ability to highlight what our objectives are, so that we're hoping that we'll come out with a set of shared objectives across the sector, and also our assumptions of what community needs, of what community doesn't want, or how they will be responding to different types of engagement. And really importantly, that if we do identify any gaps or any ways in which we can improve, making sure that we take into consideration what the actual context is and the capabilities and resourcing that we currently have and what would need to be done to make sure that we can actually improve. So it's all well and good to say, oh, we need to do this, and there's a big gap here, but to be able to fully articulate, well, what is it that we need? Is it, if it's resources, for what? What are the key aspects that we need that would help us be able to improve? And then the third point is that we'd have this we'll be able to hopefully better identify how we can target specific communities in order to improve our engagement with them, to meet both our needs and their needs. So, and I guess just to highlight again, it really is about, we're expecting or hoping that this project will be highly collaborative. So we really want to work with you together across the whole span of the project. So you'll be working with myself and hopefully some of the other agency staff. We already have a project steering committee, and so working with agencies is a really great opportunity to build that buy-in right from the beginning, but also the consultation will go broader than that group, because you'll be working across the entire sector. So, and to have a really clear engagement plan right from the beginning is really important, so that we can help tee up those times where we might be able to find the work for everybody. And then also in terms of public dissemination activities, the project team it'd be great if you work with us if you're going to publish anything or going to be doing any presentations and so forth, so that we are just having that clear dialogue throughout the project. So this is a suggestion. This is what we kind of dreamed up or imagined would be possible for this project, but it's very much, so in terms of the outputs, we would like those outputs, but in terms of how you do it and how you would like to structure the project, we are completely open to discuss that with you. So we're hoping to have a scoping workshop with those key people who are already on the project team, working with you on the project plan and that engagement plan or communication plan, and then having a presentation of the phase 1 results, having a presentation of the phase 2 results, and then having opportunity to work with you on the draft and have that final report. So it's really quite broad. So in terms of how you do it, yeah, happy to have a discussion about that.
Just highlighting, so we just put in what the maximum budget is that we would expect for this, and being a 2-year project, looking at about 273,000. That's excluding GST. That's all in the EOI. So, like I said, I'll probably skip through these a bit happily, so we can have a bit more time to chat at the end. But yeah, the way we tend to work is we have one lead provider for contracting purposes, and maybe that you're subcontracting, that's fine. But yeah, we just have one primary contact. And that contract is with NHRA rather than Safer Together or CFA, so that's with us. And like I mentioned before, there's a project control board that tends to sign off on different pieces as we go. But really, the critical part of this would be that group that you'll be working with to ensure that you are really having that agency buy-in, and we're landing things that are going to be really used, really respond well to the objectives that the respective organisation have. In terms of reporting, we do tend to contract against milestones as we go, but like I said, there's a bit of opportunity to define what those look like, and often when we're contracting, it's in concert with the project plan, just so we can have that sort of co-design and make sure that accountability is setting where people feel comfortable with it. Quarterly progress reports using our very schmick system called Turnkey, but it's very simple sort of traffic light reporting system, just to keep a record of where you are, or report risks, or where you may need support. And at the end, there is a project evaluation report, which is done as your reflections, but also the reflections of Chloe and others that have been involved in the project over time. And with this one, periodic presentations to stakeholder input, we do tend to have these all the time, but it would be really important. The EOI process, I think this is all up there, but please just let me know if you've got any questions. It's probably not helpful for me to talk to this in much detail, given it's already there. Sorry, that was the wrong link on this. I'll change that. But yeah, you'll be submitting a project proposal about 8 pages, and it's sort of choose your own adventure to some degree. But there are certain elements that would be really useful to have in there. So your understanding of the project, a plan of how you might tackle it, will help us understand if you're coming from a similar place. In terms of the collaboration we're looking for, clear description of what it is that you've been looking to deliver through different stages, and noting this would still be negotiated, but it's more a way of us sense checking later if you were successful. But yeah, it's just a way of us sense checking if you've understood what we're trying to get out of the project. A detailed project budget, including details of any kind, and it'd be good to have the FTE in there as well, actually, isn't it? There's something that's not in the EOI, but just so we can understand and evaluate values of money. And the summary of the people that we'll be working with on it. So the other benefit of having the FTE in there is we can actually understand if they're actually working on it, or they'll be consulted or in kind, or whatever it might be. And there is a draft contract, so please request a copy of that if you're interested, just to see if there are any clauses of concern and flag those up front, just because otherwise, yeah, we don't want to be stuck like going back and forwards or contracting for a protracted period if we can avoid it. But yeah, that's a good way to try and mitigate that. And yeah, we evaluate. We usually have a couple of people from NHRA, and then Chloe, I mentioned it would be you, but someone from Safer Together. we'll review the submitted EOIs against the evaluation dimensions that we put on the EOI itself. So have a look over those, but feel free to ask me any questions if those don't feel clear to you in terms of what it is that we're looking for. That's the end of the substantive portion of the presentation, just as a flyover. Chloe, thanks for taking a bit more time to sort of reflect on the outcomes. It's always richer hearing from the person who's putting in the research aspiration to talk to it directly. I think it brings it off the page. But what we want to do now, team, is we wanted to give you a lot of time to be able to ask your questions that you might have had. A lot of you have seen the OI already. If you don't want to be on video on the recording, you can always put it in the chat. And if you really don't feel comfortable with either on the recording, you could always email us later.
Hi, George. Just a super quick question, and I might have just lost because some of your sound disappeared from time to time.
Oh.
Pretty good most of the time, but I think when you flashed up the due date and time, did you say that wasn't the right one? Because I thought.
No. Sorry, the web link wasn't right, but the due date and time was correct. So
did that say the 10th of October? In the EOI, it says 29th of September.
That's correct, yes.
Correct.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Attention to detail, or strategic, clearly.
Not a major detail, but kind of critical.
It is kind of important, I would say, pretty major. So thanks for being generous, though, Jen.
No, don't be silly. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
So, Tim, I see you've got your hand up. Feel free to ask one.
Yeah, thank you, George and Chloe. I guess I have a two-part question, but it's the same question for the phase 1 and phase 2. I guess it's probably more for Chloe. Chloe, you are, a great social scientist in your own regard. What do you think? What would these are potentially large participant groups that we're talking about? What's your sense of, who you would anticipate people need to talk to? What kinds of participant groups do you think people need to talk to do this work?
The way we were thinking about it is, so we already have done a little bit of pre-work. So we did a workshop with CFA, and we worked with the different regions. We did a mapping exercise where we found out there is a wide range of approaches happening across different regions. And we thought that it would be interesting to take that exercise and do something similar across the broader Safer Together cohort. So that would be with DECA, parks, and potentially local councils. But it's really, again, like you have a set amount of money, you can also tell us like how much you would be able to do. And in terms of which community groups, again, I think we had the idea was 3 locations of high risk bushfire, and that perhaps those community groups might sort of fall out of the first phase. So, you'd have your general cohorts of people who are living in the high risk areas as residents, but you could also have, your potentially conservation groups that might have a particular stance on fuel management or vegetation management activities, and we're open to what you would think would be appropriate. So I guess that's the whole point. Like we're this is the idea, but we really want to work with you, and we want to bring your expertise and your interests and your background into this as well, so that it's we're pretty open in that regard. It's really about just helping us forward our knowledge about and our thinking and the way that we even structure this, because at the moment it is quite basic in terms of what we're doing in this space, and it's a lot around information provision, but I think there is also an understanding that there is a lot more that we could be doing. It's just about trying to identify what and how do we prioritize it. So
can I ask just a quick follow-up question from that too? That's a great question, Tim. I think there are 5 CFA regions across Victoria. Did you look at all 5, Chloe, when you did that first review? Yeah. And so then obviously there's many layers of sub-regions, groups.
Yeah, it's the difference was quite huge in terms of the capacity, the resourcing, and then the different who was doing what. So, and I think once you add the layer of what are you know, what forest fire management Victoria doing and what are parks doing, and it's going to be really interesting to just capture that and to see. I imagine there are heaps of opportunities that are untapped in terms of how we might be able to work better together, because assuming that we have the same objectives.
Yes. And the objectives are very specific around fuel management, aren't they? Just sort of even just that engagement around fuel management. But I imagine there'd be opportunities to kind of also gather a fair bit of other data about other responses to fire. Be part of that's part of the scoping in month 1, I guess.
Yeah, so but even getting the agency staff to think about, well, why are you? At these different, why are you doing a door knock, or why are you putting up a message? But like, what are getting them to think about, well, what is the actual purpose of that, and how might we improve that is really valuable.
Excellent.
And then bringing in the values of community and what they might want to get out of that. So there's lots of stuff, and what I'm hoping is that we just sort of scratch the surface, but then at the same time we start to build that the evidence base where we can start to think about this in a more strategic way.
It's quite such an interesting project, I think, because of that diversity and different strategies being applied at the moment, but also.
Oh, you're cutting out again, George. I don't know what's
going on. Sorry. Hang on, maybe can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. You might just need to stick your microphone in.
Yeah, I know. Hang on, maybe I'll just do that. But it's what makes it such an interesting project, and like I said, coming from a community engagement background, is that there's a range of different strategies being deployed, but is that in response to where communities have identified they want to be engaged? Because there's and even within a lot of communities will have differences in terms of how they'd like to be engaged with their expectation of whose role it is to do what, but then even within those communities there'll be quite a lot of differences as well. So it's such a rich project. Sorry, Chloe.
And there are opportunities. I mean, the recommendation from IGEM and also the actions that have been committed to, that they're very much about explaining risk, explaining what is residual risk. Like, it's a very kind of it's about education. But I think you're right, Jan, they're probably, what this research can do is also highlight the other opportunities potentially that are broader beyond that communication of risk.
Yeah, fascinating.
So just having a look in the chat. What other questions did people have?
Quick question is really also about what other data that might be available to sort of also start to distinguish between different communities, whether we can look at adaptive capacity or exposure, some kind of interesting things that might help inform the way comms are designed. We're just doing some work across New South Wales looking at the regional vulnerability, exposure and sensitivity. So it's right front of mind about how some of the data could help sort of think about what different communities are experiencing, just even if it's cost of living pressures or some economic struggles or other things that might then impact the way you could design an engagement program. But that might be further down the track once you've got the kind of phase 2.
I mean, there are definitely tools that we can use. One of the neat things about this project is we also have so within Safer Together, there's the Community First team, and they do a lot of work. They have the community bushfire base, CBBM, community based bushfire management program. But we also have the community engagement team at CFA as well, who are involved in the project. So they have, it's kind of bringing two of these different streams together. And they have their ways in which they target and prioritize communities for their engagement. And I guess you could sort of lean or leverage off that as well. But there's definitely options. And I think that's where the steering committee will be really helpful in providing that advice.
Related to Jan's question about existing data, is there scope / potential to observe engagement activities, collate or review existing engagement material?
Yeah, in terms of what Safer Together are what the different teams are currently doing. Yeah, that's absolutely part of it. Yeah, we want to know, we want to be able to capture it. In terms of, is that in regards to outside of Safer Together more broadly, or?
I guess I was just thinking that sometimes, for instance, during focus groups or interviews, what people say they do or sort of feel they do can be quite different from what you maybe an outsider might see in materials or in content. So just wondering if there was an opportunity potentially to either observe how this looks on the ground when people are actually engaging with community and maybe some existing materials and how messages are being I guess constructed and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be great.
There you go. Yes, please is a good answer, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. I might call it there then, team, if there are no further questions. And noting that I didn't say going, but I'm saying it. But then also it would be ill-advised to do so because it's not the end of the conversation necessarily. So you can feel free to get in touch via email. The number of times I've left a meeting like this and gone, oh damn, I should have asked X is pretty hard to count. So yeah, feel free to get in touch, and yeah, you've got the email address of the EOI for any further sort of inquiries you might have, and we're the good first point of contact. But if NHA can't answer it, it'll be asking Chloe anyway. So yeah, but thanks so much. Lovely to see familiar faces, but also meet some new folks as well. And yeah, appreciate you being here for this project. And yeah, good luck to all of you. Yeah, hopefully see what you come up with. So, but yeah, have a lovely afternoon to everyone. Like I said, feel free to get in touch again.